All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. So, I am Andrew, aka Harry Potter fan, Mindgasms, for the purposes of this video. And I'm going to talk about some of the latest stupid Twitter drama about J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, of course, complimenting Matt Walsh, who is a conservative political pundit, his anti-trans film called What is a Woman, which supposedly exposes the trans ideology in mainstream institutions or something like that. I haven't seen it, and as usual, right wingers love it and lefties think it's terrible. I don't really have much interest in it, but people's opinions on it are kind of funny and actually a little bit interesting in this case because J.K. Rowling complimented his "What Is a Woman" documentary, but she also rejected his anti-feminist brand of anti-trans rhetoric, basically, or like trans ideology skeptic rhetoric or whatever you would call it, because she sees what he says about trans people and people of his ilk as an excuse to as basically a Trojan horse for misogyny. So you have this cover of fighting against woke trans ideology or whatever, and it's an excuse to be misogynistic towards and insult individual women about it. And J.K. Rowling thinks that there should be more of an institutional critique of what they both see as the trans ideology. So I'm going to go through a little bit of their Twitter exchange here. Okay, so Matt Walsh said here, J.K. Rowling tweeted at me to criticize me, but now she's being attacked by the left just for simply acknowledging my existence. That's how toxic and dangerous I am, apparently. Couldn't be prouder to be viewed by that way by these people. That's just fucking immature. You like being hated by people who you disagree with? That's like really fucking childish, of course, because it's Twitter. Um, so then she said something like, oh yeah, this is where it gets into. Matt Walsh said, "I respect the courage." He's talking to J.K. Rowling. I respect the courage you've shown on this issue at J.K. Rowling, but many people have simply caved to the demands of trans activists and completely surrendered truth and reality to them. The cowards are also villains in this story. They need to be held accountable. Kind of sounds like a woke SJW for that, doesn't he? Even though he's a conservative, supposedly fighting trans stuff. But oh, and then she says, endless death and rape threats, threats of loss of livelihood, employers targeted, physical harassment, family address posted online with picture of bomb making manual aren't mean comments. That's what he's supposedly reducing them to. And then he says, all of those things and then some have happened to me in the last month because of my film. But if I had backed down and crumbled to the trans activists, I deserve to be corrected for it. Cowardice is what empowers these people. Nothing will ever improve until people stop caving. Yeah, bro, it's super brave to insult people on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, I don't want to show my bias too much here. Um, I would say I should mention too, for people who haven't seen me talk about it before. I also got disowned by a family member before for supposedly being transphobic because I liked J.K. Rowling's jokes that she made about trans people, like something like what did we used to call those people who menstruate? Women, women, women. It was jokes like something like that, and I liked those jokes, but then I got labeled as transphobic for that, even though I've sexually experimented with trans people and have no problems with them whatsoever. So but I think that JK, I have kind of mixed feelings on JK Rowling, I guess. I don't really know what to think about her opinions on trans stuff because she's apparently constantly tweeting and getting into stupid Twitter drama with all sorts of people about it. But I don't know. It seems like she's fighting back against ideology, but maybe she's gone too far sometimes, and some people have labeled her as a turf. I don't really know. But anyway, I think this is interesting because to go back to the tweets here, as this epic saga goes on. She said, oh, let me go back to the last thing he said. All of those things and then some have happened to me in the last month because of my film. But if I had backed down and crumbled to the trans activists, I deserve to be scorned for it. Cowardice is what empowers these people. Nothing will ever improve until people stop caving. Yeah, bro, okay, you're so brave. Uh-huh. And J.K. Rowling said, and your film did a good job exposing the incoherence of gender identity theory and some of the harms it's done. Many institutions I used to admire have uncritically embraced this dogma, but I reserve my ire for them rather than shouting coward at individual women. I think that's interesting because, as I said, she's complimenting his What is a Woman kind of anti-trans documentary, but criticizing the way he does it, with him insulting individual women for supposedly caving in to the pressure of the woke trans ideology or some shit, instead of criticizing institutions that are adopting this sort of ideology, which makes more sense to me. And so she said, but I reserve my ire for them rather than shouting coward at individual women. And then he said, I agree that they deserve the lion's share of the blame, and I do have a lot of sympathy for young women in particular who don't have platforms and power and are descended upon by the trans mob. Uh-huh. But Macy Gray is a famous singer. Her cave was particularly gratuitous, in my opinion. I don't even really know about that. Apparently, she said something favorable about trans people, or from his perspective, adopted the woke trans ideology because she's a coward. I don't even know whether, based on what she said, whether it seems like she's a coward or she actually genuinely believes what she said. But I'll leave that aside because it's not particularly relevant to this whole thing. So then we get to the more, I think, more interesting part of it. So as I said, she um, she complimented his What is a Woman documentary, and agreed with him about the evils of this trans ideology that's being adopted by mainstream institutions, but rejects his anti-feminism as a anti-feminist brand of anti-trans behavior and rhetoric as a Trojan horse for misogyny towards individual women, rather than criticizing these institutions for adopting this ideology instead. So she goes into that a little bit here, which I think is interesting. So this one. Okay, so she has a 4-tweet thread here where she says, oh yeah, so this is her again. She's making the fucking mistake of getting into Twitter battles and conversations with a whole bunch of random people on Twitter. So this guy Jason Whitlock, I have no idea who that is, said, he chimed in, of course, like a lot of people are, and said, respectfully, and I sincerely mean respectfully, you need to fall back and support men like Matt Walsh. You're not built for this conflict, woman. I'm adding that. The failure and cowardice of men got us into this mess. Matt is standing up. You need to support him. Men have to fix this. Men caused this problem. Men should fix it. Get out of the way, woman. She said, respectfully, I've been facing down the punch and kill TERFs brigade for. So for those of you who don't know, that's trans exclusionary radical feminist, which is used as a slur mostly by lefties against people who they see as transphobic. Some of them are clearly, some of them clearly are not, like Dave Chappelle, for example. I've been facing down the punch and kill TERFs brigade for a while now, and not once have I thought, what I really want, maybe I should try talking in J.K. Rowling's voice here. What I really want is to hand this over to a man who thinks feminism is one of the worst things to happen to Western civilization. And then she says, like many women on the left, I despair that so many self-proclaimed liberals turn a blind eye to the naked misogyny of the gender identity movement and the threat it poses to the rights of women and girls. Walsh's film undeniably exposed what many leftists are too scared to, I think she meant to add, do that. And then she said, but a shared belief that women exist as a biological class and water's wet and the moon's not made of cheese. does not an ally make. I believe women are susceptible to certain harms and have specific needs, and that feminism is necessary to secure and protect our rights. Walsh believes feminism is quote unquote rotten, and his default appears to be denigrating women with whom he disagrees. He's no more on my side than the shut up or we'll bomb you charmers who cloak their misogyny in a pretty pink and blue flag. Hmm. See, I think that's a good point. She makes the point that he points out some of the flaws in this trans ideology being adopted by institutions, apparently, but points out that he's only a mild ally because, as I said, his anti-trans rhetoric is also anti-feminist, and it's so his anti-trans behavior is kind of a Trojan horse for being misogynistic towards individual women. And then someone also went into this a little bit and found these tweets of what exactly he said about feminism in relation to that. So let's go into it here. So she commented on this, and then it's followed up here with what Matt Walsh said about feminism, and it's pretty shocking. So she said, gender identity ideology that has allowed a ton of unreconstructed misogynists to drop the pose. Oh, I misread that. Gender ideology has allowed a ton of unreconstructed misogynists to drop the pose and unleash all their woman hate in public, and my God, aren't they loving it? Yeah, the gender identity ideology, so it's allowing misogynists to basically just be misogynistic towards women. I've seen that too. I mean, like an example of this is the lefty YouTuber Walsh, who I follow, literally making misogynistic insults towards J.K. Rowling on Twitter for her supposedly being a TERF, in his opinion, and him being so I don't even remember exactly what he says. I don't really care that much, but it, supposedly what he said was so rude that some trans people, like I think real name is Natalie Wynn, who is the ContraPoints trans person who has a YouTube channel. He burnt that bridge with her, and she stopped being friends with him because she was so offended by what he said, which makes sense because if you are a transgender woman who identifies as a woman, then it makes sense that you would be insulted by someone making misogynistic comments, which seems to reflect on women in general rather than J.K. Rowling, just for them being misogynistic comments, right? Okay, so she said gender identity ideology has allowed a ton of unreconstructed misogynists to drop the pose and unleash all their woman hate in public, and my God, aren't they loving it? Okay, and then it shows here a bunch of his Matt Walsh's tweets about feminism, and I'm gonna try. I don't even know what his voice sounds like, really, to be honest. So he said, "Feminism is rotten at the core." Yeah, bro. Each quote unquote wave led inexorably to the next. There is no good in feminism. It's one of the worst things to ever happen to Western civilization. Holy fuck, dude! Can you say anti-feminist? I mean, I agree that there are some excesses of later waves of feminism, perhaps, but that's fucking ridiculous. There's no good in feminism. There's a ton of good in feminism, and it's sure as fuck not one of the worst things to happen to Western civilization. How about things like women being allowed to vote, it being actually illegal for husbands to rape their wives now, women being allowed to work and have jobs and drive like they are not allowed to in some countries like Saudi Arabia, although I think they might be allowed to vote and drive there now. I'm not really sure. But you know, there are other theocratic Muslim countries in which little girls are not allowed to read, and they can get stoned to death for that, or they can get killed for being raped because it's their fault somehow. Like, obviously, feminism has done a lot of good in society, and you know, not only are women working, they're more equal in the workplace than they used to be. At least most people would at least agree with that, even if you think things haven't gone far enough. This is what else Matt Walsh said about feminism. Feminism has become the most vacuous and useless movement known to humanity. Yeah, can you say fucking hyperbole, bro? Holy shit. The most vacuous and useless movement known to humanity. I think that would probably be Nazism. I think that's way more vacuous and useless than feminism. I think a lot of people would probably agree with me about that. These women are desperate to be oppressed, but sadly for them, they live in the freest and most prosperous country on earth. Yeah, part of that is thanks to feminism. Like, holy shit, dude. So they spend their time inventing boogeymen to fight. I mean, again, as like all of this fucking phenomenally hyperbolic shit goes, he has a kernel of a good point. Uh, we live in such a free society that a lot of people, regardless of who they are just constructing fictional boogeymen to fight. But obviously, feminism has done a lot of good things for women and society as a whole, and he's just being a dickhead here. So he also said, yes, I said that I don't like female analysts and reporters in football. That's pretty misogynist. This whole tweet is misogynistic here. And no, I don't care if that upsets you. No, I don't apologize. Yes, I think women are feminizing traditionally male spaces. Yes, I think that's bad. Yes, I'm right. No, your whining doesn't change any of this. Oh my god. This guy's like a fucking douchebag, man. Uh, this shit always happens on fucking stupid Twitter drama. People have a kernel of a point and then they go way fucking overboard and go so hyperbolic that they sound like fucking cartoon characters. But yeah, anyway, um, I thought this was actually kind of interesting because J.K. Rowling is having a bit of a nuanced take and not just accepting like misogynistic anti-trans right wingers because she understands that to both of them there's a problem with whatever you want to call trans ideology, whatever that means in mainstream institutions. I agree that, like, you know, not defining what a woman is a little crazy, but it is also true that what a woman is can have different definitions in different contexts too. uh, but while she was commending what is a woman documentary, she also pointed out that, like I said, this anti-feminist brand of anti-trans ideology that a lot of right wingers are practicing is just a Trojan horse for misogynistic insults of individual women rather than trying to bring down the supposedly institutionalized woke trans ideology. And I think that's a really good point that J.K. Rowling makes. All right. So yeah, let me know all of your fucking hyperbolic takes because they're really nuanced takes about these topics in the comments there. Thanks everyone for watching. Click that like button, click that subscribe button, share this everywhere, click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. Check out my last one, which was a podcast with my friend Dusty, who I often talk with about the book by Neil Gaiman called Norse Mythology, which is his fables in roughly chronological order of a whole bunch of the Norse legends with Thor, Loki, Odin, etc. And my next one will probably be a clip from one of my podcasts about right-wing cancel culture, like Tucker Carlson wanting there to be green M&Ms and Ben Shapiro hating Cardi B's WAP, because people have this idea that cancel culture is exclusive to the left, which it is not. And also, my next solo video after that will be my next one in my series on cynical theories, which is James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose spreading a whole bunch of fucking intellectually lazy dumbassery and misinformation about all the usual suspects that I defend and talk about on here, like postmodernism, Marxism, critical theory, and critical race theory, even though I wouldn't say that I adopt these ideologies or anything like that. It's just that a lot of people who criticize them clearly don't know what the fuck they're talking about, or they lie about it. So check that out too. And then next weekend, I'm going to be doing another nerd book chat with Dusty and our nerd friend Tristram from the UK about Shadows of Self, which is book era 2 of the fantasy author Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn trilogy, which is kind of like a fantasy western murder mystery with gods and shape-shifting espionage and all kinds of exciting stuff. So check out all of that stuff, and also check out my link for my Patreon page, which is in the description as always. And if you give me $10 a month, you can vote on future topics, books, and movies that I will discuss both by myself and with others. And like I always say, always remember this: I love you all, and groove is in the heart, and the funk cures all, and Metallica is awesome, and Twitter drama is stupid but entertaining. And yeah, check out all my future videos. And thanks again, everyone, for watching, and adios until next time.